Yes, welcome back. Today we're going to be reacting to some more Goth content. You guys know the drill.
All right, listen up. Before we go any further, I'm going to lay down a few rules, all right? Commandment number 1, shut the hell up. Commandment number 2, there's nothing I can do about the sun. Commandment number 3, there are no more Jolly Ranchers. They're all gone.
There's some interesting points in there. The first one, obviously, we can just ignore that one. Shut the hell up. I agree with that one, obviously. Shut the hell up. That's like my favorite thing that people do, is when they shut the hell up. Actually, no, it's not. I love it when people yap. Gives me inspiration, stuff to work with. The yappier, the better. The second one there being, I can't help OG goth bands saying they're not goth or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it said, but that's actually a real thing. You see, the funny thing is about goth, for the longest time, bands did not want to be associated with goth. It was actually alternative was the original label. No one wanted to be called a goth because that was then conforming to a rigid structure for a subculture. There then had to be rules and qualifiers for goth then in that case, but goths originally did not want that to be a thing. They did not want there to be rules and a name and a label and core identifying features. So yeah, for the longest time, goths were actually resistant to the idea of being labeled goth, especially the bands that were forming the goth subculture in London around that time. So it's actually interesting that she brings that up because, yeah, that's true. Almost all of them were like, we're not goth, okay? Stop trying to put a label on it. We're all strange weirdos, and the second you put a label on it, we're all in trouble. Now there's like an expectation for how goth should look, sound, and act because now there's a label on it. So yeah, that was one of the things that I recently came across in my studies, is that alternative is actually the original label for goth, weirdly. The last one there was the Batcave has officially been closed. It's no longer there, you can't go. Now the Batcave was like a prestigious alternative club in London in the late 70s. It was home to all sorts of degenerative debauchery. But it was also sort of the original place where like a lot of the goth scene, a lot of the goth enthusiasts would actually meet up in their greatest outfits, their best goth drip, and hang out all night and do drugs and drink and do various other things and go back for an orgy on the weekends. But one of my favorite anecdotes about the Batcave was from Lol Tolhurst, one of the original founding members of The Cure, and therefore one of the pioneers of goth. But one of my favorite quotes by the man is something I'm going to hold with me for the rest of my life because, oh boy, is it applicable these days. Lol Tolhurst writes in reference to the Batcave in London, the policy at the Batcave was clear. Anyone could enter, no matter how packed it got. There was no gatekeeper at the door admitting the cool kids while turning away the plaid shirts. He goes on to say, ad play was a basic truth. When outcasts start casting out others, they've basically become their own kind of establishment. Interesting. That's actually really weird, and I've never noticed that until this reel just here. What is that, Bo Burnham? Is that his name? That is like a weird modern version of Darkwave, a little bit. Isn't it? I've just noticed that. It actually is. It does have audibly references to Darkwave, even the way it's sung, the instruments, the chord progressions. It's all there. All the instruments and ingredients are there. That's kind of weird. Did anyone else pick up on that? Oh, they're listening to, what is it, Ivana Polka or whatever it is, but it's like the Hatsune Miku version of it, which is ridiculous. This is adorable. This is just is there anything better than this? Just goths having fun. That's good. I'm pretty sure it's Ivana Polka. I'm pretty sure that it's something around that, okay? My Swedish, Finnish, Scandinavian languages they're not great at all. But what I will tell you is that it's actually pretty sure it's like a well-known, I think it might be Finnish actually. I think it's a well-known Finnish folklore story or something like that. I don't know how it made its way to Hatsune Miku and Vocaloid. I think it's a Vocaloid track actually.
It's always, I want me a goth baddie, I want me a goth baddie. I'm wearing black. That does not make me goth. Okay? Maybe I'm going to a funeral.
Every day? That's unfortunate. With this revelation that I discovered that alternative was kind of the original name for goth before it was more clearly identified and defined later on as it was flanderized through the decades. Yay! I would say most people are probably goth without even realizing it. You see, there's always like this assumption, it's like you could be goth and I could just not know it. But now we're starting to realize that maybe people could be goth and they couldn't realize it. Because there is like this cartoonized perception of goth where, you know, unless you're summoning black magic spells on the people you don't like and you're being cringe as hell, unless you're a South Park goth kid, then you can't be goth, you can't join the club. But I think that club has far less rules for admission than people are probably willing to accept or even aware of, to be perfectly honest. Goth is far more inclusive than people are trying to say it actually is, contrary to what people are currently saying at the moment. You can't be goth of this and you can't be goth like that, as if I'm going to listen to a fucking American as to what goth is. I grew up about 3 hours away from the places and cities where the pioneers of goth who discovered what goth actually is grew up. Even geographically speaking, I'm more goth than you are. As if that can even be quantified. Is it like metachlorians, maybe? Is a metachlorian count? What's like a goth metachlorian? What would a goth metachlorian be? Do you know what? It's been so funny as well, people trying to be like, aren't you the guy that said you hate goth? And I'm like, uh-huh. That was like the original thing that goths did. They hated goth. They did not want to be a part of it. They wanted to be their own thing. And anyone who was trying to conform to this label of goth, they didn't want to be associated with them at all. Especially those who were trying to use goth for their own ends. I said in my previous videos before that like I wanted to reclaim goth because I didn't want it to fall into the wrong hands, into the hands of the authoritarian left. So I thought I'd take the label back and make a stink about it. But yeah, I think there maybe should be someone who could put together like one of those which Harry Potter house are you in, but it's like how goth are you kind of thing, and then be presented with some very surprising questions. It's like none of this is about the music. Weird. You have to remember that these bands that originally pioneered post-punk, which then turned into gothic rock, where then the goth subculture came from, they were inspired by something. And that is actually where the inspiration from punk comes from, everybody. I know everyone's just like, oh, goth came from punk, so therefore it's liberal. It's not true. Since anti-establishmentarianism has been expressed by both the liberal left and the conservative right at some point throughout history, it's responsive to who the establishment is. Sorry, it's just this t-shirt's too tight. It's very distracting. I forgot where I was going with this. Let's go, just move on to the next one. I actually was distracted. It wasn't even a joke. I actually lost my train of thought. This is very cool. Man, I miss dressing up, dude. That was so much fun. Enjoy it while you can. Kids, seriously. I say kids, pretty much anyone under the age of 30 is I refer to in such a manner. But dress up while you can, because you will eventually lose the ability to do so. Look, there was a reason why even Beyonce's producers and management told her to and wrote her a country album to with. In fact, it wasn't even country. I think she was like, what, 1 or 2? I'm sorry that my Beyonce knowledge is not up to scratch. You should be embarrassed of yourself if yours is. It's because country is has been so ubiquitously shat on that now it's kind of cool to like it. This stuff happens with everything. Like, if you notice the drastic increase in pro-Christian rhetoric, Californian liberals made atheism really lame. Seriously, you guys made it really stupid. You made it look really, really bad. Great. Now I have to deal with a new influx of Christian kids coming up in the next couple of decades. Good job I dusted this off. As per usual, the arguments still stand. There's a couple of arguments I completely forgot about as well, because they've never been relevant. But maybe they will now. There was always going to be this confusion, this misappropriation by low IQ The renouncement of God was never about the lack of evidence or a scientifically critical mind erasing the requirements for God to fill in the blanks of mystery, or even the philosophical stance that there couldn't possibly be a God. No, it was never about that. It was just about pure rebellion and nothing more, whereas my atheism is steeped in far more than just, I'm not going to do what you tell me to do. It's far more important to me than that, which made it all the more painful to watch these aforementioned then make it about Satan and the devil and that kind of stuff. That's not what atheism is. They took something that was honestly quite important to me, important to a lot of people, and honestly, atheism was sort of the standpoint for the rational thinker, the critical thinker. Yes, there has been a massive influx of incredibly intelligent individuals and content creators and influencers on the internet saying Christ is king and all that kind of stuff, and I believe in Jesus Christ and all that kind of dumb shit. But it's only because they're smart enough to see what the zeitgeist of social media is and is becoming, is that there is going to be a massive influx of Christian rhetoric and support for pro-Christian content creators, that they're jumping on the train now. They're being like, well, you know, even though I'm smart as hell, Christ is king, right? A couple of years from now, these tweets will be resurfaced and they're like, yeah, he's always been like on our side about Christianity. Trust me when I tell you this is where it's going, okay? Despite the fact that I know that by renouncing my heathen ways and converting to Christianity, I know that probably would benefit me more, especially in terms of the kind of audience that I most likely appeal to or are going to appeal to more in the future. I can't lie. I can't lie to you. I can't do it. Trust me, man, I remember being, I think maybe 7 or 8 years old, sitting in school assembly, and in school assembly they would always do hymns. We sing hymns as a school, and they would talk kind of like a sermon. They would just like go through stories of the Bible all the time, and we had religious studies where we studied passages and stories and fables from the Bible. There was no one that came up to me and was just like, maybe this is not real, maybe this is a form of control, maybe someone with even a small amount more of critical thinking can debunk a lot of this stuff in a couple of minutes. Without even that knowledge, at the age of around 7 or 8, I knew this was all crap. I knew it was. No one had told me or explained it to me or had influenced me to believe anything else. There was something in me that was just like, but this doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make sense. I've listened to countless religious arguments between atheists and Christians. Christians desperately trying to state their basis of belief, and I can't buy it. I'm sorry. I've heard smarter people come up with far more intelligent explanations as to why there isn't one, and if there was one, it wouldn't be Christian, that I couldn't possibly stoop down to that level. I would be lying to myself. Anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Great day and all. Catch you guys later.